comes to the best, it ain't hard to choose. For your sport shows, updates, and interviews, the only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the team WSN.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Usually State of the Jungle is live on Wednesdays. This week it's live on Thursdays. First and foremost, I want to thank my co-host for being so accommodating, I will say. You know, the Celtics were playing in Indy, and we don't really get to see him too often. And, you know, I promised Daniel next time that they played here, we'd go together. And you know what? We did. And it was, even though we lost, it was a good time.
It was
still
a great game.
Great game. It was great being surrounded by Celtics fans. That's what I will say. And some of the things they were chanting to Jason Tatum were kind of crazy. But nonetheless, a lot of stuff to get into with the Bengals. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live, when we upload content from the TWSN studio. Guys, the Bengals lost this week. Bengals lost this week to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the way the game started, it seems like we'd be celebrating. Let's just say the way it started isn't the way it finished. There was a lot to take away from the game. You know, me and Zim go live after every Bengals game now, along with Daniel, and we discuss it. But I want to give you guys a chance to really dive deep into this game and talk about it. Logan, what were your thoughts on the Bengals collapse versus the Eagles?
Like first and foremost, I want to go off of something you said. After that first drive, I don't know if I've ever been more confident, ever. I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. Fuck yeah. Like, we're good. We're here. Let's go. And then after that, the second drive was pretty good. You know, whatever. It happens. Teams adjust. You adjust a little bit. And then after that, you missed the field goal, and you just immediately felt it. You're just like, oh, shit. Like, is it going to happen again? Is it? And then, you know, a couple of the Eagles would answer a little bit. And then you would kind of keep looking kind of lethargic and just And then things just kept happening for the Eagles and kept happening for the Eagles. And kept happening for the Eagles. The next thing you know, they're up by 20 points. And you're like, what the hell just happened? You know, it's hard to even just say what went wrong. The Bengals made a couple of huge mistakes, and the Eagles just immediately responded in the biggest and best way possible by scoring touchdowns. Again, you miss a field goal, the Eagles go down, score again, they double up before half, after half, and that's exactly how you're supposed to play it. That's what made the Bengals so good during the Super Bowl run. They did that so many times, scoring before half, coming out, scoring again. That right there, just being able to capitalize that, allows you to play with literally anybody. That's just a free 14-0 run just because you had the ball and they didn't, not because your defense was great or put you in that position, whatever it is. It's just a free 14-0 run opportunity that you have. And when you take advantage of it, again, just having 14 points is huge. You take all the momentum going into halftime, and you take it all coming out of halftime. And that's just exactly what the Eagles did, man. I mean, I think, you know, the game plan was solid without T, which was kind of, you know, I guess the one encouraging sign that I would really, not one, there was a couple, but the big thing, like I said, the opening drive without T was awesome. It started to look good, but then as the game went on, you just started to look worse and worse and worse again. Like Malik said, it was just a massive collapse due to a number of reasons. And you couldn't get the momentum back after you lost it. And they couldn't connect on the play, or they'd shoot themselves in the foot, flag, turnover, fumble, interception. You know, the Eagles would make it just a great play, which teams are going to do. And nothing just went their way. And that's just kind of been the story of the year so far. Nothing can go their way. They can't get out of their own way. They just can't get things flowing. And that's just really come down to the Eagles came in, started off a little slow, but they didn't let it get to them. They kept firing. They kept punching. They kept responding. They kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. The whole game, no ifs, ands, or buts. To where the Bengals, they came out, started off strong, and was like, okay, we're good, and then sucked the rest of the game. I mean, it was just they just sucked in the game. To be honest, I really think that's I don't want to say that's all it is, but it was a weird 2.5 quarters after those first 3 drives.
Yeah, there were some high leverage plays, man, where unfortunately there's some bad luck involved and just things not going your way between the fumble, the interception that got tipped, the one-on-one play where Darius Slay knocks out what Burton had in his hands in the end zone. And then on the opposite side where you have the one-on-one play where Jordan Battle is basically in position and almost knocks out the touchdown that Devontae Smith caught. But, that's just a couple jump balls that didn't go the Bengals' way, unfortunately. And it's tough when you don't have that margin for error because things are already so tight and your defense is struggling to get stops. The inability to get pressure in the time that Jalen Hurts had when you had 4 total pressures and 2 of them were from Trey Hendrickson, which I know we ask a lot of Trey, man, but when you're going up against a guy like Fred Johnson, when you're going up against backups, you have to dominate. Like you are the guy you have to be that guy for them. It's unfair that they put that pressure on him, but that's the way it is. The lack of pass rush is exacerbating the secondary issues. They're already having difficulty in and of themselves, but giving so much time for things to develop and these downfield chunk plays to happen is absolutely crucifying them on defense. There were multiple drives where they had like 3 plays, 6 plays, and they were already in the end zone. It was effortless. You got to find a way to get pass rush. If you have to up the blitzes to the crazy amounts of levels that, the Vikings do, because they have a talent deficiency at present, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not what you want to do. But you got to find a way to do something because you're not going to win games against halfway competent passers, giving them 3, 4, and 5 seconds to throw. And for these guys to cover like that is just, it's not going to happen. And you're not getting the level of pass rush that you need to be able to cover for the mistakes that are happening on the back end. And man, the offense, we know, it's been so inconsistent and the play designs aren't always bad. I want to be clear about that, but they are bad in the worst times. Yeah. And we talk about how play calling and coaching are so much more than just having good design. It's rhythm, it's setup, it's also having good design and just good sense about when to run things. When you're running pistol and shotgun and doing toss plays to gain 1 and 2 yards, but you're starting yourself 6 and 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage now, that's bad process. When you are constantly throwing behind the sticks with wide receiver screens and reverses and all these little swing passes, when you have 2 of the best players at their positions in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and you sometimes have T. Higgins and you have Yoshi and you have Mike Gesicki, you're telling me that you don't trust Joe Burrow to just read the pattern that's out there and gain a catch for 2 yards, for 5 yards. And this permeates into the run game where we've seen different offensive linemen come through. We've seen different running backs come through, and everyone seems to have the same issues. And this offensive line just, even once before it, don't play with violence and physicality. You know how many times you see other teams where you watch the replay on the run and the gap is fucking 5 feet wide, right? And you could run through it. And you just don't get that to where even the successful runs that they do execute, it's like guys are running the motions. It's like they're running routes at 85 or 90% speed to where they're in place, they're in position, but they're not making an impact and they're not winning the leverage battle and they're not moving their guys off of their spot and driving and getting that gap open. And that's been a persistent thing. So now we're like, hey, the defense with either veterans who know the system or guys who have been in here for years have regressed. They failed to develop talent for young guys with Marion Hobby on the D line. Okay. We feel like they've probably failed to execute at a high level with Mixon and multiple different schemes and multiple different running backs now, right? And have not performed to the expectation that you would think, especially when you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow and weapons like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they have to respect. You would expect to be able to find more space in the run game. But again, this has been a constant issue. Okay. Throwing short of the sticks. We remember the Alex Erickson wide receiver jet sweep handoffs on 4th down and 3rd and short, right? Like, we thought we learned this, right? And we thought we learned not to take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands when the game was on the line. And we thought we learned, from the Eagles game where they were punting previously until they both tied and didn't want to go for the win because they were scared to lose. You had that again with the Patriots, 4th and 5. Again, you don't have a play to get 5 yards. You're an offensive head coach. You got Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, all these weapons that you brought in to make your offense the juggernaut. This is your strength. This is what you're built to do. And you can't get 1 and 2 and 5 yards consistently with this team that should be damn near unstoppable on offense year over year with multiple weapons, all type of schemes, everything that you could want. Now you've got the best offensive line that you probably had. And again, we've seen failure to develop that. We've seen poor process and game management and throwing short of the sticks and not being aggressive and being conservative constantly. I've talked about how when you look at the win probability, if they're 30% or less win probability in times where you need to go for it, you need to be aggressive. The Bengals are dead last and going for it on 4th down in those instances. When you look at just the regular games, when the probability is between like 20 and 80%, then they're 4th worst over the last 4 or 5 years when they've had Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. That's not good enough. And it's not just saying go for it on 4th down all the time, but it is saying have a plan, be aggressive, because I think this soft mentality, this conservative mentality is just, it's permeating all aspects of this team, man. They're not playing physical out there. They're not moving guys off spots. They're not out there hitting. God damn, dude, watch the Lions game. When one receiver catches the ball, everyone's out there not just looking to get in the way. They're trying to fucking hunt. They're trying to hit somebody. Like, everybody is just so bought in, and you see it, and you see the passion, and you see the physicality. And I think this just passive nature of being afraid to lose, being afraid to take the chance, being afraid to be aggressive has just permeated so many different aspects. And even think about when there was success, when they did make it to the Super Bowl. Was it because they were just rolling on offense? Was it because they were executing really well? No, it was because Joe Burrow was playing hero ball and chucking it to Jamar Chase 2 or 3 times a game, and that was enough to make it happen when the defense was putting it together. But you don't have that. And we've just not seen enough consistency year over year with multiple players and multiple different schematic tweaks. We've seen so many iterations of this, and it's just looked soft and scared and conservative consistently. And it's just, man, something has to change. You need some catalyst to shake something up, because you cannot keep just telling yourself every week, we just have to be better, because that's not a plan. That's hoping. That's not a plan. That's not addressing the issues. That is ignoring them and saying they should be better next week because we think it will, because we believe. You've put years on tape now. We don't believe. I don't believe. Like, something has to change here. Something has to reinvigorate them, because they just do not have what they need to truly compete. They are just not. They're just lifeless out there sometimes, man.
And unfortunately, that's becoming more and more obvious every week, which is by far the most.
And people are getting
part.
frustrated. And man, like, at this point, you do have to play Jermaine Burton, I think, because Yoshi is just not, he's disappearing out there. Irwin's not the answer. Charlie Jones is not getting any time on the field. I love the 12 personnel, but you see even on the routes where, hey, Jermaine Burton doesn't know the playbook or runs the wrong route like 1 or 2 times. Okay, well, there were 4 other times that they had catches because Jermaine Burton ran a clear out route and had 2 or 3 people looking at him. That corner route by Eric All, there was a catch by Jamar Chase underneath. There was a Mike Gesicki catch that were all made possible because Jermaine Burton's out there running that clear out route like crazy. There was 2 times he was open in the end zone. He had the big catch down the sideline. Like, you need that. Whether he runs the wrong route on 1 or 2 plays, that's going to be growing pains. But you can't tell me you can't get that on the field, because you need these explosive plays. You have to get something from these other guys.
It's hard to grow when you're not on the field.
Right.
And
the best teacher is experience and
literally.
reps.
Yep. And, that's obviously a popular topic right now with the whole Anthony Richardson thing. And not that they're similar, but at the end of the day, like you said, the truly best way to work through everything is in a game.
Mhm.
You can sit there, you can watch it, you can talk through it, you can see it better, you can communicate it better. You're in the huddle, you're in the moment. Learning in the moment is by far the quickest way. If you don't want him to continue to make these mistakes, then put him in a situation to where he can learn from it. You can't. It's so hard to learn from what you do in practice all the time. It's so hard to learn from the film room. We're just talking
and you don't have much
conversating.
time for backups to get reps in the week. Like you're trying to game plan everything so hard.
Yeah, there's just no better time to go out there and physically do it than now.
Right.
If he goes out in the game and he fucks something up, now that's gonna sit with him. That's like, oh man, we might have just lost the game because I did this. If he messes up in practice, you know what I mean? Like whatever. Like I can. There's no negative thing about it. Like you can't see the reality of your mistakes as much as you do in a game. And if you don't want him to continue to make them, then put him in a situation to where he can stop making them.
And the other evidence I forgot to bring up too was the slow starts every single year. It's like, again, this is all lack of preparation stuff. It's lack of execution stuff. And again, like you've had guys here for multiple years. Eventually, it's the execution, it's the coaching. Because like if you're failing to teach everyone who comes in here to do things effectively, like somehow the message is getting lost because like again you just cycled through so many players here. It's just to have these persistent issues year over year over year over year. What is the constant? What is the common denominator? It's been the coaching staff, and like it's something has to change. Something has to be done, and they have to break away from again just falling into these common practices and saying we feel good about who we have here, and we're going to be better next week. We're going to be better next year. We're going to be better next this, that, and the other thing. No, be better now. Find a way to be better. Find a constructive way to say this is wrong and this is what we're going to do about it.
I'm smiling so hard right now.
It's getting to me
because this
man.
is the
Like,
Evan I wanted to
goddamn,
see.
dude.
This is the Evan I hope to see. And I'm going to get to something that you said earlier in that discussion. But before we do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Let me just say this one thing before we jump over to the one topic of is this a playoff team? And then the next thing, previewing the Raiders game. It should be very telling. When you have people who are usually mild-mannered, who are usually the voice of reason, who usually, they're always able to, I guess, build in a reasoning or a pathway forward. It should be very telling to you that the sentiment from everybody, from the Joe Goodberrys of the world to the Malik Wrights of the world, to the Evan McPhillips of the world, it should be very telling to you if everybody is basically on one accord that something has to give. It should be very telling. The last few years we had a lot of the built-in excuses of injuries to Joe Burrow, slow starts, things like that. But when you have everything you hoped for, it creates a little bit of discomfort, I would say, amongst the direction of this team and where this team, where you had hope that it could be with the healthy Joe Burrow. I never in a million years did I think with the last place schedule would we be sitting here with the Bengals 3-5. Never crossed my mind. Never. I said there's no way that's the case, and we're going to touch more on that. But before we do, let's ask the question. Can we envision a world in which this roster as it stands is a playoff team, guys?
It's tough. I'm gonna say yes, just because you're looking at a team like the Broncos are in the playoffs right now. Do I think we're better than the Broncos? Yeah, I do. You know what I mean? I think we're a better team than the Broncos. I think we have higher caliber players, but at the end of the day, it's just there's also not much hope at the same time. It's such a weird thing. Like, yes, this team can very easily make the playoffs because I think they're better. Like, and the Steelers are 6-2. Are the Steelers really a 6-2 football team? No, probably not. That doesn't mean they're not a good football team, but they're at the end of the day, you always are going to be what your record shows. That's unfortunately the truth. That just is what it is. I think the Bengals could very easily be a playoff team, but that window is shrinking very quickly every single week that goes by. And if something needs to be done, the urgency, something needs to switch for that to even become a possibility, because again, that is shrinking very fast. It's still not the most overly likely thing in the world, but I mean, you have a quarterback playing at an MVP caliber. You have a receiver playing as, an offensive player of the year caliber player. Trey Hendrickson, up until this last week, was having a defensive player of the year caliber kind of season. When you have all those things, like that is enough for a playoff team, no matter what. It should be, at least, and it's unfortunate that everything else hasn't clicked. That's why, it's kind of a tough thing to answer. But if I had to answer it, I'm still going to say, yes, they very well could be. But that's very walking out the door. It's about to walk out the door. It's not there yet, but it's like about on the doormat, unlocking the door. Like it's about to leave.
I think that's the best explanation for it. They are a team 1000%. I truly believe they can be a playoff team. I think that this roster, as it's currently constructed, what they have on this team, what they've even showed this year, the first 4 losses were all by 1 possession. And that's something that you go track that time in and time out. You go look at many different teams. Go look at the Los Angeles Chargers with Brandon Staley, right? What was their biggest issue? Staley couldn't get it done in 1 possession games. And that's the pathway the Bengals are going about it right now. And that's how, Logan, you touched on it. This is really the turning point, because respectfully, that was your excuse at the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. That was your excuse heading into this Eagles game. Hey, you know what? For as bad, and that's why me personally, and I think we were all on the same page. Hey, as bad as it was hearing Zach Taylor say the stuff in the press conference, we'll figure it out next week. For us, it was like, okay, well, you still got 12 more games. All right, he may be telling, all right, whatever, we'll figure it out. But at this point, now is where the breaking point is. So when we discuss, is this team, can they be a playoff team? I think so. You look at the defense, as much shit as it gets, the defense played very well at the beginning of that Eagles game. They performed very well. They stopped the run. Saquon Barkley had only 30, 40 yards. And they were looking good. Obviously, they had multiple spurts. The Jalen Hurts rush to the outside that scored the touchdown. That was on, Miles Murphy. But they were making life very, very difficult for this Eagles team. One of the plays that forced them to have a field goal, they rushed 4, and Jalen Hurts did exactly what we said. Hey, you have to put some pressure on him and force him to throw a 50-50 ball. It was a very inaccurate pass. A.J. Brown, that's what they were doing. So when I look at this defense as it's constructed, I think that they do need more juice on the pass rush, but I still think that they've got the makings team-wise, talent-wise on the team. It really is going to come down to, does Zach Taylor lose the locker room? And I really think that's the conversation. You start to see more and more the, Jamar Chase speaking, even the Jermaine Burton thing today, him, saying that to the media. That's the players, I feel like, are very similar to fans in the sense, if we feel aggravated, the players probably feel aggravated too. And at some point, as much as we can say players take their own blame, they're going to, the finger always gets pointed somewhere. And that's the basis in any place. The finger will always get pointed to someone. You have people like Joe Burrow who will point the finger at himself, but at some point he's going to be doing that to save face for the organization. But does he feel that in his heart? And that's where I feel like we're at the crossing point right now, to where, does Jamar Chase feel the same way? Does Joe Burrow feel the same way? And as much as, Zach Taylor is a liked individual, I saw, multiple things, the team, Chase Brown, they love him as a person. At some point, winning takes precedent. And I feel like the team starts to understand it now. So that was my long-winded answer. I think that this roster can be a playoff team. It really is going to come down to, does Zach Taylor lose the locker room? But am I out on the season? I am not out on the season. I think that there's still...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think Zach Taylor has lost the locker room, or you think he's losing the locker room?
I think that the team is holding on to hope right now. And I think...
That's a very political answer you gave me.
Well, I think wins and losses matter. I truly believe that I believe the locker room knows what the problem is. But I feel like they're relying and they're hoping, the team's hoping that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can get them out of it. So, yes, if I were to say, I think that the team understands that Zach Taylor is a problem.
Didn't Joe Burrow say in a recent post-game presser that he knows what the problem is? I'm pretty sure he did.
Something along those lines.
I'm pretty sure he said that. But he didn't allude to what it is. He said, "But we've got to do it in house."
Something or something like that.
He said something very similar to that. Of we know what the problem is, but we've got to keep finding a way to dig it out. And to me, I think Joe Burrow is speaking out in a Joe Burrow-esque way. But I'll tell you this: I'll ask that question, same question to Logan and Evan. Do you guys think that Zach Taylor has lost the locker room? Or he's losing the locker room? By the way, I've seen many of locker rooms lost, like in covering the NFL.
I think things would have to spin spectacularly out of control for that to happen. And when I say that, I mean they would have to continue to be like 0-5, 0-6 at home. I think that would be a big thing, because I think part of that would be season ticket members start canceling. Fans are starting to get more upset. Like, I think even players are going to get more frustrated at that, because, I mean, you want to win at home. You want to win in front of the fans. You want to feel good, like that you're building on something. Like, even just trying to get a win right now, But yeah, you basically got to win every single AFC game, man. And if you keep dropping them, and especially in the division, like, dude, they're tired of fucking losing to the Ravens, dude. They're tired of losing to the fucking Steelers. Like, they know they can beat these teams. Like you said, the Steelers have done an excellent job, like Daniel said, of winning those one-score games, of playing well down the stretch, of always getting that one defensive play that they need to just make the game just fall in their favor, to just walk away with the W. As ugly as it may be, with, you know, Justin Fields throwing for 100 yards and rushing for 50 or however you get it, right? They find ways to do it. And Baltimore has largely found ways to do it, and found ways to look really good doing it through the offensive way instead of the defensive way. They've remade themselves that way. If you just keep seeing all these other teams pass you up, that's going to wear on you. These guys you see all the time that, you know, like, hey, we should be right there with them. We've been to the Super Bowl. We've been to the AFC Championship. And now the last couple of years, we're just, the roster is decaying. Guys who are supposed to get paid, Jesse Bates, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, aren't getting paid. All that is going to slowly start building up and wearing on them, man, to where, like I said, if things careen out of control, if you're 3-5 right now, if you end up with 6 wins, 7 wins, is this team not looking around going, something's got to be different? And you have Joe Burrow, you have a top 3 quarterback. Like, when you say, hey, are you a playoff team? I mean, because you have a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, yes. But if you just took the quarterback away and stripped everyone's names away and said, hey, rest of this roster, you've got top 3 wide receiver, you've got a number 1 wide receiver across from him, like a 1B guy who will be there for half of the season, probably due to soft tissue injuries, and maybe not be 100% in those games. Understandably so, because soft tissue injuries just don't heal very well. You'd look at this and you'd say no. You'd say no, they can't generate a pass rush. They've got one good pass rusher. All their corners are inconsistent and giving up big plays. Their safeties have been inconsistent and giving up big plays. The linebackers have been solid, and the D line has been okay in spots because BJ Hill, you know, taking the name off it, is there sometimes when Trey Hendrickson needs him to be. I think if you just strip the names away from everything and take the top 3 quarterback out of the playoff equation, like you said, the back end of the AFC playoff picture is ugly right now. The top is great, but like, there's multiple AFC teams that are like 2-6 right now. So they caught some breaks there for teams that, you know, we thought were going to be closer to the top in the playoff race. The Jets, the Dolphins, the Browns, if they managed to actually get a code and offense together, you know, those are teams that people pegged as playoff teams, right? So because they're doing so bad, the Bengals window is still open. And having that top 3 quarterback just qualifies you for that. The rest of the roster is just not anywhere near to match for, again, not playing your guys, not developing well. But again, the coaches are part of that. You've had Marion Hobby, you've had Frank Pollock, and these guys are just not getting better. They're not figuring out a way to improve, and you're missing out on getting multiple guys to get better. And it's just, again, what's the common denominator? It's some of the coaches, man. Like, you're drafting poorly, you're signing free agents poorly, like, you're all just making every poor decision possible. Or when they get here, things aren't working out for another reason. What could that be? Like Joe Burrow allegedly said, I think we know what the problem might end up being.
Yeah, he said that when they were 1-4. He said he knows why they're 1-4. He knows what the problem is. He said that exactly. That was the quote. I'll say this. I think Joe Burrow's getting fed up.
Which is all that matters.
True.
I think Joe Burrow's getting fed up, and I think it's very obvious too. You don't see the same energy that you usually see from Joe Burrow in post game. You see a very it almost seems like he's worn down. He's tired. Not physically, but mentally. It almost feels that way.
There's a lot going on.
I don't know if there's an internal struggle or what's going on, but it definitely feels as if he's kind of fed up. And that's just judging by his answer. So I'll say that. I'll say once number 9 is fed up, I think you'll see what follows afterwards. I think that, you know, and that's why I gave my call to action this morning about Duke Tobin stepping up on Monday and facing the media and answering. I know we don't hear from Duke usually during the season, but I think this is a situation where you should. The fan base, the organization, the players deserve to know what the direction is. in terms of will you be looking to make acquisitions at the trade deadline? Because I'll be honest with you, if you go out there and you beat the Raiders, you have to do something. You know, you have to do something because your season is still on the fringe right there. You still have a chance to correct the issues. We aren't coaches. We aren't coaches. We watch a lot of film. We are live every single week. We've been live every single week for about going on 3 years. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. And I think, let me just say this. I think Cincinnati is a very intelligent fan base. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at it and say pass rush was going to be an issue for this team. And kudos to Evan, Logan, Daniel, myself. We've talked about the addition of a cornerback to this roster. And now these are issues that are starting to plague you a little bit. And now when you are in a situation in which you're not willing to make the necessary adjustments to keep yourself afloat, you do have to start to talk about people's job. You have to wonder if people can be the answer that you hope they can be. I certainly feel the angst amongst the fan base. I certainly feel the angst amongst some of the players when they speak. For a rookie and Jermaine Burton to come out and speak the way he spoke, certainly he's confident. But to me, that I don't know. For me, I'm a leader. I run a company. And I'm going to say this, I let people voice and speak their minds. But what I will say, there's a borderline of just completely having no respect or no fear of what the repercussions might be. I certainly felt that I think this locker room has just started they feel like they're too talented. They feel like they're fed up with the same mundane process. Like there's a reason why, right? There's a reason why this team continuously has slow starts year after year.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not a luck thing. To me, that becomes a part of your DNA. That becomes who you are as a team. And it's this thought process that it's fine. We'll get it back later. It's fine. We'll get it back later in the season. Oh, because we've done it before. We'll do it again. That should be a cause for concern for a lot of people. You ask me. That should be a cause for concern. Like, I get it. I love the fact that Zach and company seem to have the Chiefs number and they do well against the Chiefs, but we could have said that a couple of years ago, like, right? They seem like to be the one team that understands what it takes to beat them. But is that it? Is that the calling card? Oh, we played the Chiefs close. Or we beat the Chiefs, so we have a winning record against the Chiefs. Is that what it is? What else is it? What else can you bring to the table? What is your record in your division? How does your team start the season? Why do you constantly get out-coached from rookie coaches? How does that make sense? For me, it's simple. I want to see this team win. I want to see this team win games. I believe in this team. But I'll tell you, I want to make something very clear to y'all as well. I would really, really hate if the Bengals went out there, beat the Raiders, then faced the Ravens and got absolutely stomped on Thursday Night Football. Because what does that do then? You want to see people pissed? You want to see people upset? Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
And Benjamin, let me just be honest. That's a real scenario we could be facing.
Oh yeah.
That's a real scenario we could be facing, where you get to 4-5 and the fan base is uber excited and really pumped up, and then you completely get stomped on by the Ravens. That's a real scenario. But hear me out. I heard someone in the comment section, not even heard, I saw someone in the comment section of Twitter earlier, or X, say, well, you don't make a trade until after the Ravens game. Well, first and foremost, factually wrong. That can't happen.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. The trade deadline's Tuesday at 4 p.m. They've got to figure out what they want to do now. And I get it. Maybe you wait until after the Raiders game and you figure out how it is, how you're going to attack the trade deadline. That's fine. But something needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
My challenge still stands from this morning. That wasn't an emotional challenge. That was a very thought out one. Duke, Bengals, sure you're probably at home eating dinner with your family right now, but listen to me up. How about you address the media, you address the organization, you address the fan base on Monday, and you let us know one way or the other. Should this fan base even be looking towards you potentially trying to find a way to get this roster to the level that it should be? Are you going to even be scouring the market looking for potential additions to this team?
We really like the guys we have, and we think we have
Excited
the
to see how they
guys
finish
to.
the year.
We think we have the players to put forth a competitive team week in, week out.
And if you're going to say that, please do it. Please at least address the media, because then we know who to look at the end if this thing turns south. Then you could say, hey, Malik made a challenge to Duke Tobin. Duke Tobin spoke to the media, and Duke Tobin said, we're fine with the roster that we have. So therefore, Zach, my gripe isn't with you. You're just coaching with what you have. I still have a gripe with you, sure.
Yeah.
But Duke, you've now become officially a part of this problem that we're discussing. So Bengals, do me a favor. You say you want to do right by your fan base. You want your fan base to pack the stadiums. You want your fan base to do this. You want your fan base to do that. Step up in front of the media and tell them what you're looking to do. I'm sorry, is a 6th-round pick really worth all that? Is a 5th-round pick really worth all of this? How dedicated are you to a championship? Or even giving your team a fighting chance? That's some of the things that I want to know. Because to me, as a functioning organization that is in 2024, that apparently has made all these strides to start to act like a competent organization, part of acting like a competent organization doesn't just mean what you do in the offseason. It doesn't just mean what you do at the contract negotiation table with your own players, who, by the way, you haven't signed still. It's what you do in these moments. We talk a lot about situational coaching. What about situational roster management? What about that? And I'm not asking you to go out there and trade for, trade 1st-round picks. That would be stupid, right? That'd be dumb, right? But I am asking you to make an effort to try and get better. Place a fucking phone call. Try and get better. Josh Uche just went for a 2026 6th-rounder. Could that guy have helped you potentially? Who knows?
Deontay Johnson just went for free.
Same thing we talked about with when you're talking about you have to be willing to make changes if you're the coaching staff, because something's not been working out right. And we know the NFL is changing, especially in terms of contracts right now, right? You, especially if you are going to basically build your team with one hand tied behind your back, the way you do contracts compared to everybody else and how the NFL is going right now, especially with upfront guaranteed money, you need to utilize those other avenues. You have to change, just like the coaching staff has to change. Duke and the way the Bengals operate has to change, whether that is contracts, whether that is being aggressive in trades. But like you said, it doesn't mean pulling the trigger on every trade out there. It means at least just being willing to pick up the phone. It means be willing to be active with your NFL, your scouting staff that you have for potential NFL targets. You have that. Most staffs do. I'm sure the Bengals do too. You have a pro scouting team. Maybe one guy, but he's still looking out there, right? He's identifying. I know they're getting these reports. They can't just be looking at them all and wasting that guy's time, right? And saying, thanks for doing your due diligence, but we're not going to do it. Yeah, we've been 25 years or 50 years, and they have done like 2 trades, and one was the Carlos Dunlap, where they were just trying to get one guy out of there.
And that took Carlos Dunlap literally being pissed at the organization,
literally posting stuff on Instagram.
Literally.
So it's like. And that was the only way to make them do a trade. So it's like, dude, like, why are you wasting this guy's time? I feel bad for the pro scout. Can you imagine if you were busting your ass every year, all the time to grind that film? And they were just like, thanks for the report, Tim. Not going to do anything, but hey, good work.
Right.
Like,
just throws it away.
Yeah. So coaches have to be different. They have to take different approaches. We've talked about start of the season, approach on 4th downs, approach to short yardage, red zone, like, It's all been dull. It's all been conservative. It's all been scared. It's all been soft. And you have to inject some life into this. Just like they do, the front office has to do the same thing too. As the NFL's changing, you got to change too. Otherwise, you're going to just end up getting passed by everybody else.
Right. And, I realize when I get on here and I talk with a hot mic, I probably don't get placed in favorable, lighting with people. And that's fine. That's a bullet I'm willing to bite. I'm okay with that. I just, for the sake of, I talk to too many Bengals fans throughout the year, And I talked to a lot of players and so on and so forth. And I'll just say this. It pains me, to see people give everything to this organization and want to see the Bengals win. And just complacency. And Misfit 85 says, "Hey Malik, sorry, but the Bengals will not do anything. They run this franchise like a small business. Plus, they are always years behind the curve when it comes to the trend of the NFL." Hi, Misfit 85. I know you've been following me for a while. You've been on the show, and we appreciate you. That's part of my job, though. Part of my job is to light the fire in this organization and talk about the things people don't want to talk about or can't talk about. And the cool thing about my positioning is I'll never I don't have to worry about the blowback, if you will. It is my job, right, to really hold this organization's feet to the fire. And it's coming from a good place. Let me just say that.
It's coming from a place.
It's
It's
coming
coming from a place of love for the
Right.
team. Wanted to see them do
not
well,
you're not
right?
going to see me on a show talking about, how they have to walk across the street and all that stuff like that for practice. I don't care about that shit.
Mhm.
But for me, I feel like I owe it with my platform to speak out constantly, to say the things that need to be said, whether it falls on deaf ears or not. At least I see myself as a voice for the fan base. And I feel like it is my duty to jump on this mic and say the things that otherwise people would not pay attention. Cincinnati's never had someone like me. And I know my word does travel. And that's not me being cocky. That's me being honest with you. So I'm going to say the things that need to be said. When the organization is performing like a functioning organization, I praise them. When shit is bad, I talk about it. Just know that when people in the national media get on their soapbox and they say what they say about the Bengals, guess what? If you're not listening to the people that are right here at home, right, that are really directly tied to the situation, that can talk about it, that actually knows the in and outs on what's going on, you can't get upset when people jump up on ESPN or Fox and they say whatever about the Bengals and just say, well, you're just bashing the Bengals. No, well, look at what you're doing. Look at how you're operating. Look at how you're attacking a situation in which could change the trajectory of your season, and realize that's why nobody takes it serious. That's why people give blowback. That's why people look at the Super Bowl run as a fluke.
Mhm.
You have to be willing to make a change. You have to be willing to adapt over time. I will never stop fighting for the fan base. I'll never stop saying what needs to be said with this mic in front of my face. Daniel, I know you want to say something.
I think, and that's the part where this is what everybody's feeling. And it's not like this is out of nowhere. This was the expectation that the Bengals themselves set after you went to the Super Bowl. And listen, we would be having a different conversation if we weren't talking about a Super Bowl. We would be having a different conversation if we were talking about a team just making the playoffs. But that's what the standard was set at. That's what Zach Taylor has said. That is what Joe Burrow has said. So forgive us as fans for wanting that and wanting what's best for a team that could potentially go to the Super Bowl. And I think that's where the biggest, if I just had to guess, looking at the organization versus the fan base and what the fan base is saying, I believe that the organization feels like their backs are up against the wall this season. I think so. But the difference is, are they just going to rely and say, hey, we'll let it work out? We know we've got Joe Burrow for another 4 or 6 years, so we're going to be fine. Or are you going to go after the Super Bowl now?
And one thing I'll say is either do not get in that mentality of that's just how they operate, because that's how they get you to operate in the mentality of to be complacent.
You have to
and
play in
still-
the sandbox.
and-
You have to
yes,
do it this way.
yes.
You don't. Yeah.
I'm
not saying you got to go out
Yeah.
and do the Eagles stuff where you give them 10 years and you avoid 8 of them. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got to go that far, because I don't want you to go that far. I don't want
Listen.
you to be the Dolphins and the
Yeah.
Chargers and all those teams that have 30-year-old guys making 35 plus mil.
Mhm.
And they have to get rid of Keenan Allen. And they
Mhm.
have to get rid of one of Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to put them in that position, but
Yeah.
you do got to be willing to put some more guaranteed money on the table.
Yeah.
It's the only way you're going to be able to get guys there.
I'll keep saying this. Y'all don't get complacent. To Evan's point, to Logan's point, to my point, to Dana's point, y'all don't get complacent. Y'all don't say, well, it's the same way that they've been operating. Y'all, the Bengals have come so far since Joe Burrow got drafted to just revert back to they just don't change. No, they talked about standard culture, bringing a championship mentality to Cincinnati. You can't just be like, hey, we're going to revert to being, non-players anymore. 100%. Like, you keep holding their feet to fire, whether that means you stop buying tickets to games. You as fans make this thing tick, just like us in the media make this thing tick. The players need us to cover them, right? They need us to interview them. That's the part about being professional athletes and playing professional sports. You get covered on probably 24/7 in a completely different light than you would have in college or something like that. You guys have more power than you think. You have the ability to not show up and make the stadium empty. You have the ability to not spend your hard-earned dollars on a poor product. You have the ability to do that. And I'm not telling you that to do that in spite. I'm telling you, still support this team, but realize you have more power than you give yourselves credit.
And to that point, they did the things like the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
They've done things to try and do the fan outreach.
Literally.
Like, and again, to the Bengals' credit, you've made changes going out and giving DJ Reader and Mike Hilton and all those guys bigger free agent contracts than you usually would. But now it's not enough to just do the dollar amount. You got to keep evolving.
Right.
You got to keep changing.
It's
They
like
did a
they-
good
it's
job
like-
there,
it's
but
like
they
they
got to
did-
stay with it.
It's like they did it one time and they thought that that was enough.
Right.
And
And I
then-
know it feels like, oh, that was just 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right? Like we're good right now. Like, no, the game is changing quick, man. And like Baltimore isn't just, hey, we're heavy run and we're gonna be, pistol and just QB run all the time and basically power offense and play defense. Like these other teams have caught up to like, hey, we can air it out now. We can play the same way you guys are. We've pivoted. So you got to evolve too.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep telling y'all, the outcry is real right now. And they don't think they don't see this stuff. They do see this stuff. I want to see people holding this, this organization feet to the fire. The voice should be even louder if they beat the Raiders on Sunday. It should be like, make a damn move. Make a damn move. Let's try and get better. Like, don't rest on complacency, because you're going to have those people that after the Bengals win, like, listen, the Bengals won. See, everything's all good. Well, those same people that are saying that will be quiet if they lost to the Ravens on Thursday. Like, don't get complacent after a victory, because by all metrics, the Bengals should beat the Raiders on Sunday. They should. They should have their first win, right? That's a home game, right? Yep. They should have their first win inside Paycor on Sunday, but don't think that that's enough. Don't think that that's enough. Still say, hey, you know what? We beat the Raiders. Now that's even more of a reason to go out there and potentially acquire a piece or two that could actually help us save the season. That should be the mentality, right? That should be the mentality. I'm not here to cause a ruckus. I'm here to promote change. I'm here to be someone who tells you like it is. And I'm telling y'all right now, do not think that the way that they're operating is how 31 other organizations operate. It should not be accepted. If any other organization had a franchise quarterback like Joe Burrow having the season that he's having and the chance to write their season, you do it. The Jets just went out and traded for Devontae Adams, and they still lost, right? But they at least they went out and they made they went out and made a trade. They're trying to get better.
You want to trade for all of Joe Burrow's best friends and all his former coaches that he's played with and everybody he's dapped up once upon a time?
No.
Oh, okay. So we're not taking the Jets approach.
No. I wouldn't say take the Jets approach.
I just want to make sense.
But the point I was more so making was, at the end of the day,
I'm fucking with you.
Yeah,
I got to get my digs in, my guy,
bro.
Mr. Cayenne Pepper and Water.
Man, he's a weirdo. We know that. But
God bless.
The chance to get better is what this should be the organization's mentality. It really should be. That's what it should be. You talk about championship. You talk about you sending these nice little letters out to season ticket holders beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Time to rule the day and who day and we day and all this stuff like that. And Jimmy, our producer, he's a season ticket holder.
Said we
man.
day?
Huh?
What?
Who day? I don't know. You know what the hell I'm saying? I don't know if I said we day. I might have said we day. But Jimmy's a season ticket holder, and it sucks. He goes out and supports that team like no other. He's spending his hard-earned money. And what are y'all bringing to the table? Nothing. If you can identify what the issues or the areas of improvement are on this team, go out there and do it. I guess that brings us to our next topic. Bengals versus Raiders preview. I'll keep it short for me. What I think they need to do, try as best as possible to contain Max Crosby, because Max Crosby is a true game wrecker.
Facts. Respect to Max.
I think you have the ability to win this game. The Raiders are a team that are just, they're floating right now. It is what it is. Their season is what it is. You should win, and you should win by a large margin.
Oh, man. Oh, God. Why am I scared, Malik? I don't want to be scared of playing.
Man,
the
listen,
Raiders.
what have they given you to
make me feel confident about anything?
That's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm serious. That's what it is. I mean,
I might just financially hedge against my emotions.
Brando's burner said trap game. How can this be a trap game when every game has been a trap game?
I don't
so
know,
far.
dude. This is why I hate like the preseason game that we all play, where it's like how many wins on the schedule, right? Because we would have said, oh, okay, Patriots, that's a dub for sure. Commanders, that's a dub for sure. Raiders, that's a dub for sure. Right. It's like, God bless. Like oh man.
Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I'm struggling with it.
No, I don't blame you.
I think
you still had to know thy enemy.
Yep. No, hey, we're having fun. Yeah.
What happens? But I have a question.
Fun.
What happens when know thy enemy and is actually the enemy is actually within? It's not just the team you're playing.
The off-season edition.
Maybe that's our bye week edition. You know, maybe that's the bye week edition. We hold up the mirror and we said, hey, who's the enemy inside? Who's the monster inside your head? You know, what you got to get out? What's the demon you got to get off your back? You know?
Marvin Lewis's return to Cincinnati, right? Isn't this? Is he with the Raiders?
Oh, God damn. If there was ever a game they were going to lose now.
I was like, oh, shit, he's with the Raiders.
Yep. The
revenge game, they were fucked.
Oh, yeah, we're fucked. Here comes Marvin, to give that final death knell. Yeah, here comes. He's gonna be like, Dave, can I do it with you? Can I do it with you, Dave? Coffin nails. Yeah, God bless. Oh, fucking kill me. We're having a great time. We're having fun. I might need to drink on the show next week. We'll see.
Assistant.
We might be at that point. Might be at that point of the season.
Yeah.
We just come here and drink.
We just come in. Yeah. Whoever wants to sponsor whatever whiskey, wants to sponsor the rest of our show for the rest of the season. Yeah, hit me up. I will drink your whiskey on the show like a fish.
That's fine. There you go.
No.
There's a couple of things. First off, this was a fascinating quote from Antonio Pierce. If Bengals fans think they have it bad right now, here's what Pierce said about his OC. He said, it has to get better. There's a lot of opportunities for us to score. That's totally on the play caller. It starts with the coordinator. He's got to take the fall for that one and gets most of the blame. But it's also collective. So the Raiders right now have a lot of their own issues. And I think that this is a game where, like you said, you should go out there and dominate them, but they just showed what they did against the Chiefs, albeit that was a divisional game. They play teams close. They're a scrappy team, and but there's so many different pathways to victory for this game. And I think the pathway, in my opinion, this is something I think that is one of the bigger issues. We already touched on it. I think it's a Jermaine Burton thing. I think it's these wide receivers. I look at the cornerbacks for the Raiders. I've been a huge Jack Jones fan, but these guys, they make a lot of mistakes. They're guys, two cornerbacks that really are ball hawking guys, two cornerbacks that really try to, go out there and make a big time play. And there's many times, go look at that Chiefs game where, Patrick Mahomes escapes, many other quarterbacks escape, and the cornerbacks dive. And we saw a play like that last week, Mike Gesicki on that broken play, 3rd and 22. I think that's, a point where the Bengals can have a lot of success. And I really think that this is going to be a game where we'll see what happens with T. Higgins, but it's your wide receivers. And I think that the outcry that social media has been for the Bengals, the Jermaine Burton thing, I think that that's a real thing inside this locker room as well. I think you saw what Joe Burrow said, in his press conference after the game. When does Joe Burrow really go out there and praise a guy, especially a rookie like he did Jermaine Burton? Right. He said, that's a guy, I thought he played well and he needs more snaps. And I think that that's potentially a reason why Jermaine Burton went out and did what he did. He feels confident. And you go look at Burton, is really looking up to Jamar Chase. And I think that's what this game's going to come down to. I think it's your wide receivers going to make plays, and you just got to put them in a position to make plays. So, this offense, I'm not too concerned about the Raiders defense. It really is, hey, contain Max Crosby. And this is also a game where I think the Bengals could establish the run. And this is a game where if they do get up ahead, I would like to see them establish the run. So all around, I think this is obviously your defense is to go, put in some work, but this really is an offense game. And if your offense can go put up 24, 30 points, I think you should be hopefully in the driver's seat to where 3rd and 4th quarter, you can let Zach Moss run 10 times. You can let Chase Brown run. So it's a wide receivers game. It's a passing game early on. And I think the Bengals have the makings to do it. So we'll see what happens with T. Higgins, but Jamar Chase, Jermaine Burton, Mike Gesicki, those are 3 guys I'd be circling. I think they all have great matchups too.
Yeah, I think it has to be an offensive game. It just has to. Evan alluded to Max Crosby. You alluded to their secondary. There's definitely some spots where they can pick on them, and there's no reason to keep talking about that. The offensive side of the ball needs to play good. If they don't play good, we're going to lose anyway. I do, a guy we talked about all off season. You still got to be careful about Brock Bowers over there, man. We talk about how they continue to stay in games. They don't even run the ball effectively, but they run the ball a lot, and then they move the chains with Brock Bowers and even Jacoby Myers. They have a team full of chain movers. They don't really have not this big play team. They're not down the field shots. They are time control football. They rein the clock. They move the chains with their slots, with their tight ends. They get the matchups they like, and they attack them. And that's why every game is close, because they can kind of just do what they want. They can not really feel too far behind, too far ahead. They always just kind of feel like they're right there. And that's what happens when you have the style of team that they have. And it's hard to, like, what do you do in a guy like Brock Bowers? Who do you put on him? He's going to line up in the backfield. He's going to line up out wide. He's going to line up in the slot. And he's been unbelievable this year too. I know
receptions in the NFL.
He's been fucking awesome. We talked all offseason about with Brock Bowers. It was such a highly debate here and there. He's been absolutely unbelievable in every asset of the game of football. He's probably been better than anybody even expected him to be. So he's definitely somebody you still got to worry about. They don't have like too much other talent on the offense.
Jacoby Myers is fine. He's good.
Jacoby Myers is fine. Their offensive line has some okay guys. The quarterback's terrible. The running backs aren't good. The other receivers aren't very good. They have some fast guys, which again opens it up for these slot guys underneath. You got to make them beat you deep, man. You got to take away the short and even the intermediate part of the field. If they hit you over top, I don't even want to say that, because then they will all game, and it's just tough, and that's how you lose games. But just get ahead, make them hurry up, make the Raiders play faster, and that's when they'll make mistakes. If the Raiders continue just to hang around and just 4 yards of Brock Bowers, 4 yards of Jacoby Myers, 3-yard rush all the way up and down the field, they'll feel fine, and they will do that all game because they know that's all they can do.
Yeah. God, I feel like an idiot for saying this. This should be fairly straightforward and simple. You show up, you be at least mediocre, and you walk away with a comfortable win. When I say it's been putrid for the Raiders offense, it has been putrid. Despite all the success with Brock Bowers, they have struggled in the red zone. He's only got the 1 touchdown on the season so far. Offense for them is 32nd in EPA per play, 31st in success rate, 30th in EPA per dropback, 32nd dead last in EPA per rush. They have been the worst rushing offense. They have been one of the worst passing offenses. Gardner Minshew is 26th out of 28 quarterbacks in PFF grade, dead last in big time throw percentage. It's right. That's not good. Alex Madison is basically taking over the lead back there. He's averaging 2.43 yards after contact per attempt, 30th out of 32 running backs. Yards per attempt, 3.2, last out of 32 running backs. Runs of 10 plus yards, 30th out of 32 running backs. Now, to his credit, he's 11th in receiving grade, 9th in reception, 6th in yards, and 7th in yards per out run. Has been effective as a receiver, but that tells you the whole story right there, that largely Brock Bowers and Alexander Madison are their entire receiving game, and you have to make Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker try and beat you, and DJ Turner, and that's going to be the way that you have to operate.
We're going to get DJ Turner on DJ Turner.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. I'm sure there will be 1 or 2 times, and then the announcers will get a good kick out of it. Yeah. But yeah, look, this is as simple as it's going to get. This is actually like the worst offense in the NFL. So like your defense needs to at least show up at this point.
They need to do more.
Yeah, and offense. Look, their defense is not actually terrible.
No, it's not.
They
Their
are.
offense makes their life so hard.
They do a lot, like we talked about with the Browns. It wasn't that Denzel Ward is not a really good player, that Greg Newsome is not a good player, or Myles Garrett's not a good player. It's just that when the defense, like we've known from previous years as Bengals fans, when the defense is on the field for 70 freaking snaps a game and the offense can't convert a third down, and you just keep getting put right back on the field, it's unfair to you to have to constantly cover all these guys and constantly be on the field trying to be explosive. So having that struggle, the Raiders are the same way, where they've lost all these games and their offense has been so bad that it overcomes the fact that their defense is 15th in EPA per play and 13th in EPA per rush. And Max Crosby is a really talented player, and they've gotten a lot out of guys like the outside corners of Jacorian Bennett. Is that right? Who's looked really good. Yeah, it's just an unfortunate injury to Christian Wilkins to add insult to injury. He was looking good for them for 5 games. It's just had foot surgery. So, it's gotten even worse for them now. So it's just everything is going so wrong with the Raiders to where, like Daniel pointed out, even the head coach is a little uninspired right now. There is no team more down bad than the Raiders right now, I would venture to say. They don't have the quarterback of the future. They don't have anything. They
have like very little for the future.
Right. You have Max Crosby and you have Brock Bowers and you have Brock Bowers, awesome Brock Bowers. If you lose this fucking game, that is how you lose the locker room. That is how you lose the fan base. That is how you get people canceling their season tickets. That is how you set the entire world on fire.
Home too, losing to the Raiders.
0-5 at home. Gardner Minshew comes in. Yeah. Cincinnati product, Trey Tucker, comes in and he has 100 yards and a touchdown, and Desmond Ridder comes in for a package of plays and just adds a 25-yard run for injury.
Hurt, and here comes
Desmond God, dude. Like, yeah.
Crap.
If you end up losing this some way, somehow, it is everything melts down. Everything is absolutely awful at that point. So you have to just take care of business. This is the layupiest game you will get all season. And as much as you have teams like the Chargers that you play later this season, like the Broncos, those defenses are not pushovers. Like, you are going to have to be more effective in those games. This is going to be the easiest game that you get on the schedule. You have to get some momentum going the right way.
If there's no flashes on defense or flashes from this person or that person, it's about wraps then. This team is
might as well play, and especially since you have a short week going at Baltimore, you should definitely give Jermaine Burton all the reps you can, Chris Jenkins, Miles Murphy, these young guys. See what you have in them. See who you can trust. You're at that midway point where you're about to play Baltimore. You're about to go in the bye, right? This is when you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, who are going to be our guys that are carrying? Because right now, as it stands, what we've been doing has not been working. So you have to know who is going to be out there, who is going to work for you. Give the young guys or the guys in the backside of the rotation, get a comfortable lead. And this is the week that you cycle out the guys on a short week to preserve the starters. But then you also get to evaluate the back end talent to help you figure out what you might need to trade for. Not going to happen, obviously. And especially when it comes to free agency in the offseason, because again, like we talked about pre-show and like we talk about all the time, Charlie Jones didn't play all last year until the last week of the season. And now you're kind of like, hey, the back end of our rotation for wide receiver is not as strong as we thought it was. It's like, you know how you know that? Because you give Charlie Brown more snaps or Charlie Jones. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Yeah.
Charlie Brown is
you give Charlie
crazy
Jones
work.
more
We
more
might be giving
opportunity
Charlie
back
Brown
there.
reps
Yeah.
by
I don't
the
know.
year.
Honestly, like, yeah, if he can kick better than Evan McPherson has from 50 lately,
Charlie
like,
Brown is crazy.
I don't know. He never got to kick the ball. I never quite got to see.
There's
how
an
good he
NBA
was
player
at,
named
but
Charlie Brown, isn't there? I think there is.
I don't know. I don't watch that much. If they might be deep down on a roster.
you're not lying.
There are some wild NBA players with some wild names. I will say that. We'll talk about that. But yeah, if you guys can do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or we upload content from the TWSN studios. We're live each and every single day. State of the Jungle is obviously live every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. But the sit down morning show, Malik Wright, is live at 10 a.m. Almost every single day except for Wednesdays. That being said, Daniel, let's jump to the questions.
Yeah. We can go with, we had a couple questions. So I guess the first one kind of sticking on this game, and Evan, you kind of touched on it, but what happens if, and obviously we don't want to just be negative, but what happens if the Bengals do lose this game against the Raiders? What happens? What's the fallout?
What is it DEFCON 1 that's the worst? I think it's always
5.
backwards. I think it's backwards in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'd think it'd be 5 is the worst, but then it's like I'm gonna look anyway. DEFCON
The
worst. Yeah, DEFCON worst. That's what it is. Like, again, this is the most hapless team in the NFL right now that has so little going for it in the positive direction. And you talk to Raiders fans, and they will be the first to tell you that that's the case. You talk to the Raiders coaches, and apparently they'll be the first to tell you. Yeah, it gets bad. Kind of like what I talked about earlier. That's when you really like the locker rooms, like what the actual fuck, because like you had to make some serious bad decisions in that game to get to a loss.
Multiple bad decisions.
Right,
Not
against
just
this
like
team.
one.
Yeah, like it's got to be your worst coach game to get there.
Once again, if you guys have any questions, make sure you guys drop them down below. Akila the Great has this question. I believe he's been asking this question for a little bit. Why do you guys think Duke Tobin has so much job security, right? And like, who is he? What would you guys say is a synopsis of why that he has earned his place as being a quote unquote untouchable right now?
I'll put it this way. Imagine Marvin Lewis for a second, right? How long was he here? 16 years, right? And we know how much Marvin Lewis meant to Duke Tobin.
Yeah.
Now, I would say magnify that times 10 when it comes to the leash that Duke Tobin might have because of the relationship he has with Mike Brown. And think about how hard it is to even have that type of relationship with the Brown family. You're not a Brown yourself. So think about how much it took for them to give that guy as much power or as much say as he has had. He probably came into that job vibrant, excited to bring a new, fresh voice. And then he probably over time got with the program of the family. And now it's status quo. It's DMO. It's, I mean, they don't even give the guy the title of general manager. It's director of player personnel. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you could only look at two people though, right? You could look at Duke Tobin and you could look at Zach Taylor. The reason why I think that maybe a lot of people are starting to point the finger at Duke Tobin is because we did get to see him have more autonomy to be able to do things like go out there and be aggressive in free agency to a degree. So you have to wonder, you don't know how much is it, hey, the organization is not allowing Duke Tobin to do these things, or is it Duke Tobin's just very set on this roster? Apparently him and Zach Taylor text, wow, right? And they have great relationships and they talk. I'm sorry, in the words of Zach Taylor, Duke and his staff, we talk every single week, as he would say. Well, if you talk every single week, I'm very curious to hear what those conversations are like. Is it, okay, we're 3-5. How do you feel about the roster, Zach? Feel good. Feel good about the players that we have. Okay. Well, that's why I put the challenge out for him to step foot in front of the media and talk to everyone so that we figure that whole situation out. Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like that kind of like unknown and, is why he kind of has so much security, is because not many people will probably feel thrilled about coming into a situation like that. Like when I'm supposed to be the de facto GM and I'm not the GM. Am I going to be able to do what I want? Am I have to run it by you? Like it's a weird dynamic to be as high as you are, but to still have, I guess a boss per se. Like obviously GMs
to not have as much agency and control over the team.
It's a little bit of an awkward dynamic, and maybe it's not at all. Maybe it's completely he does everything. You know what I mean? We just don't truly know how that dynamic works, and I think that's why it's like they're just comfortable with it, because it's that's not like if you want to be a GM, like. You're not going to settle for a director of player personnel or whatever it is, when you can just go be a GM somewhere else.
But it's weird. He is settling. There are people.
I'm saying that's why other people won't come in and do it. That's why he's
gotten requests. He's gotten requests. Trey Brown turned down the Patriots interview.
Shocking
like, dude, you're getting a chance to be a general manager. Like, what is this family offering you? Like, is it like, we'll make you millionaires in Cincinnati? Like, we'll give you. Well, what the fuck security is that? Like, I'm just. You have a job for life. Like, what is like?
Could that be a reality though? Like, does that sound crazy? But like, is that something where we've seen it with the players? Is that something where they say, hey, as we like you enough we're going to keep you until you don't want to be here? Do you think that's possible?
It certainly is possible. I'd like to hope not.
It's interesting.
It's certainly a possibility.
It's like becoming having a job politics. It's like working in Washington on the Hill.
It is the most frustrating part. You don't know what the hell's going on.
It is easy for anyone in any walk of life to get comfortable, to find somewhere, let's say it's a job that you're at, and maybe the circumstances aren't great. Maybe you're like Duke Tobin and you don't have as much responsibility or credit or money as you should, right? But you like the people you work with and you have good relationships and you get passed over for promotions and you don't get to have as much agency over your work as you'd like to, but it's comfortable. It's close to home, it's nice, right? But you got to want more for yourself, right? Like you got to want more for yourself. And it's the same for the Bengals. I feel like they've gotten so comfortable in the way of operating of, hey, we've got a good relationship. Well, especially in competitive settings, it's good to have people button heads. It's good to have ideas contrary to your own, like to have someone else who's just like, hey, I see that perfectly the same way you do. And I totally agree. Let's do it that way. Or someone who's always going to default to you like, hey, it's your opinion. Like this is your team, but like, we think this, but hey, whatever you think, like it's your team. Like, I don't know that that's how the conversations are going. But again, like when you have that comfort level and you're not having that constructive back and forth, you're not getting new influxes of ideas, you're not challenging your way of thinking, you're not growing as a person, you're staying stagnant, you're not growing as a professional in whatever industry you're in, you're just stagnant. And that's how things feel right now. They feel stale and stagnant, and it feels like you've just been trying to maintain the status quo and just getting these middle low tier free agents and practice squad players and late round draft picks and saying, these are our guys and we trust that we picked the right guys and we're going to develop them. And we know better about Drew Sample and Jackson Carbon and all these other guys. And time again, it's proven no. But again, they've been comfortable operating that way. And again, like it goes back to everything we've said of you are too comfortable. Things are not working and you have to shake something up. You have to change. You have to challenge yourself to grow and not just be comfortable being somewhat competitive and just hoping that everything aligns perfectly for you, because hope is not a plan.
Yeah. Preach.
We got a question from LeVar Hollis. He said, do you guys think that Zach doesn't want to give up play calling because he has job insecurities? Maybe he has imposter syndrome. So what do you guys think about Zach not giving up play calling?
I'm not gonna say anything because I was told I've always had it out for Zach.
I saw that.
I've never had it out for Zach. I know that dude too.
It's it's one of those things where like Zach's play calling isn't bad all the time.
The play designs are not bad all the time.
It's just whenever you, like you said earlier, I forget, it might have been Evan
all the high leverage situations.
As soon as it happens, you're like, just what the hell are you doing? Like he just leaves you saying that far too often. But that doesn't mean he doesn't call a great game the rest of the time. But it's just he just leaves you wondering what the hell are we doing when we need it the most a lot, and that's the biggest issue. Yeah, maybe the dynamics a little different with pitcher this year. Maybe he's, I don't know, the game script, they're scripting differently together. Whatever it is, we don't really know that dynamic truly either. But I don't. The whole play calling thing, I don't want to say it's gone away for me, but like it's the least of our concerns at this point. Like that's we'll worry about that again. Hopefully never. But right now, there's just too many other things to really, I think, need to be fixed before we go back to just telling him to give up plays.
Oh, by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. I know it wasn't a loss, but did y'all see Mike Gesicki on Sunday? Yeah, I saw Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, that's his role, man. That's his role.
I mean, if you're not gonna deploy Burton, he's got to be your pseudo wide receiver 3, right? Like, because he's out. That's the infuriating part about this, right? Is because when you watch the routes, Gesicki's winning.
Yes.
Jamar Chase is winning. Jermaine Burton is winning. You see the route running, the nuance, the high level of route running when you see him out there. All the head fakes, the leverage plays, everything he does to get open, you see it. And he can break and hit those breaks at full speed, which not everyone can do. He's crafty, man. And again, these guys are getting open, but these guys are having to get open themselves. And that's what it sems like every single time.
It's kind of weird with Gesicki because, I feel like these last couple of years, he'd fit absolutely seamlessly with what we wanted to do. And he comes here, now all of a sudden we're a 12 personnel team.
Right.
And it's just like, well, that ain't Mike Gesicki's strength. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's weird. But every time we continue to go out there and use him, he plays good. And like I said, you bring him in here with the years, the offensive identities and plans we've had in the years past. What we're seeing from Mike Gesicki right now would be freaking awesome in those offenses.
Right.
That's just not what we're running. And it's, it's good to see him go out there in a situation and just perform. And, you got to just continue to find ways to to do it. I don't want to say it's
Um,
necessarily go 12 less because it has worked a lot, but you just got to find a way. When people play good, you got to find a way to continue to see how long they're going to play good for.
Yeah, I've seen. This is now his
Like-
second game this year where he had 7 catches. Right. Here's what I'll say. Do me a favor, Bengals. Keep T. Higgins out this game. Okay. I'm sure he's probably training that way anyway. Keep T. Higgins out this game. You're going to need all the troops ready for this Baltimore Ravens game. If you have anybody who's even remotely where you're not sure about, I think it was T. Higgins. Who else was it? Someone else. Orlando Brown. Keep him out this game. You want everybody at their absolute best against this Baltimore Ravens team. Give Mike Gesicki, give Jermaine Burton, and then guess what? It'll be amazing if they get the burn and they get, they're getting the reps and they are able to put up some good numbers. Imagine now having T. Higgins and incorporating all that together, right? So that's just my call to action. Give those guys a shot. That's why you went fully out there and you added a Mike Gesicki or you added a Jermaine Burton for moments like this because you did expect that T. Higgins could miss a game or two here. So now you got Jermaine Burton in the fold. I'm excited to see what he has. And I would personally, I would like to see what Charlie Jones has too.
Yeah, you just have to. We have no clue what he's got, which is I don't want to say an issue because if he just sucks, he sucks.
Right.
Like, it's kind of an issue. So.
Yeah, and I think something else just to add on to that. I think it was on the Bengals YouTube, the mic'd up between Jamar Chase and Chase Brown. I really advise everybody go watch that because there's something I learned from that. 2 things. First off, Jamar Chase, what he said about Mike Gesicki, it was after multiple of those catches. He's like, that's what I want to see out of you. He's like, I knew you got that, something like that. And it's like, you see how excited he is when these guys are making plays. And same thing, I want to applaud Jamar Chase because multiple times pre-snap and even Jermaine Burton on the sideline, what he's saying, he's like, yo, like Jamar Wright is about to get snapped. He's like, Mike, go outside. He goes, and then Mike goes outside, draws 2 defenders. It was on one of the 3rd down plays. Jamar catches on the inside. And Jermaine Burton is praising him on the sideline saying, yo, if you told me go outside, it really helped me, like so on and so forth. So there are many instances just seeing how Jamar impacts not only, what defense are doing, but his other receivers. I just want to shout that out because I was like, wow, I didn't recognize that. I was like, damn, he's really out here doing it for his entire team. So shout out Jamar, obviously.
You know what's so difficult for me throughout this process?
Yeah.
You look at the Bengals' remaining schedule, man. Like if they're performing the way we know they could perform, they should be able to win
80% of the way.
80%. They should be winning a lot of these games. We should be like, they're fine. But
like, are you beating the brakes off teams? No. Are you beating them by 2-3 scores like you'd hope? No, but like you'd be winning them.
It's all of that.
Right.
You got the Raiders, you got the Ravens on short week, and then you got the Chargers. Right?
The Chargers game is big too.
It's huge, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. Got to find a way to win these games, man. You got to find a way. But I'm telling you right now, that Ravens game, I think from a morale standpoint, if you are able to, if you beat the Raiders and then you go out there and you beat the Ravens on Thursday Night Football in Baltimore,
we're good.
I think you feel differently. I think you feel you're 2-1 in your division at that point, right?
The problem is you have to be a completely different team for what you've been for the last 5 or 6 games. Like, yes, they can be. But again, like, what was Cam Taylor-Britt last year, the year before, compared to what is he now? Like, DJ Turner has been inconsistent. It's Dax Hill being hurt, like missed tackles, like out of position. Just it continues to be issues with this team.
I agree with you. Number one, you're right. We need them at least 80%. And I think it's a confidence thing. I think it's the way you approach the game because it does feel like they need a jolt. They need something to kind of help them, like, get over this.
It's crazy how
block or whatever it is.
Let me ask you something. How much would adding a average edge rusher to this defense do for the whole of the defense? Just for getting pressure off of Trey, more pressure, more consistently, secondaries not covering for 5 seconds at a time.
Major. I would love to see an Azeez Ojulari get added. I would love that personally. I think that's a guy that hasn't been able to unlock his potential in his career.
See if Josh Uche is available for a 6th rounder.
Yeah, right. So who they said, but they ain't Malik. Quinn Kidwell, are my guy. He's props to Quinn. He helped me build a lot of this studio too. He's my Best Buy guy. I go to him for a lot of the stuff like that. So we were talking about when we first started building the studio, I leaned on him for a lot of his advice and stuff like that. So greatly appreciate Quinn and all his advice. And he's always supporting in the chat. He says, Malik, if you could pull any coach in from anywhere in the league, who do you think meshes best with the current Bengals organization? That's a loaded question. So first and foremost, if we're going with the offensive mindset mantra guy, pulling any coach, I mean, a Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, I think could make a lot of sense for this Bengals team. A McVay, obviously.
So Kyle Shanahan obviously has a lot of agency over his personnel.
Yeah.
Is he going to get that level of control here?
He'd have to, right?
I would say he wouldn't. That's why I'm trying to think of like guys who've worked in. I'm trying to find.
I think Zach does get that. Well, you're talking about from a trading standpoint.
No. I'm just talking about like realistic coaching guys that could, like, let's say they've coached for the Cowboys where Jerry's very involved, or they've coached for the Raiders who are largely cash poor and deal with a lot of the same kind of struggles that the Bengals can with contracts, where you might have a guy who's coached defenses like Brian Flores has in Minnesota, who have had lackluster talent, but through scheme ingenuity and kind of expanding the parameters of how we approach defense and what is possible and creative growth, that's the kind of guy I'm trying to target, because you have to find a guy who can excel in these circumstances. That's the big thing, is you have to find someone who's proven to be able to get the most out of his players and constantly improve. And approach things creatively in a different way. The same way that Brian Flores has done for defense or Mike McDaniel's done for offense. Because again, you have to make up for the deficiencies that you have in how much you're spending in free agency for how often you're hitting in the draft class.
I'm be honest with y'all. Look, I'm paying attention to that situation personally. But I agree with you. I think it does have to be about, like, I'll put it this way. I see a lot of people asking for Ben Johnson in the chat.
If Dabble got moved on from, like, that would be a guy who I'd be like, I've seen you make Daniel Jones work competent.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen you design interesting offenses. I've seen you use him as a runner. I've seen you utilize the strengths of your players and alter the scheme of your offense as such. I've seen you take those chances that you want to see on taking personnel on the guys like Tyrone Tracy, Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. Am I wrong for saying this, Ev? I want your opinion on this. I think if the Bengals were to move off of a Zach, again, this is just me hypothetically speaking.
Right.
I don't know, people taking what I'm saying and running with it, but I personally would want a coach that has done it before. I don't want a brand new coach, because I think you're losing something with the Zach. And here's what I think you're losing. I want
to do that with good intentions, though, and not with the intention of trying to be like, hey, this is John Fox.
Yeah.
Oh, John Fox has done it before, right? Like, we believe that. If you're talking about like Bruce Arians, okay,
yes.
That's
the kind of. Did you see me talk about that?
No.
Oh, we literally talked about that.
Okay.
I literally was like, "Yo, Bruce Arians would make a lot of."
That's
I would go. For this time, because you have to look at it like, yo, if you were to make a change at the head coaching spot, this is probably the last time in Joe Burrow's era that they would actually do this, right? While he's still performing the way he's performing.
Yeah.
And I think you have the opportunity to swing big and hit. I really think you could. I would shoot for the stars, man. I would shoot for a Bill Belichick. I would shoot for a Bruce Arians. I would personally shoot, because I would shoot for stability. I'd shoot for stability. That's just me personally. Like, and usually I'm the guy that's like, yeah, give me the young offensive minded guy. Give me the guy that you could grow with. But like, no, I feel like this team could really benefit. Jamar Chase could really benefit from a veteran coach that knows what they're doing, that has had success in the National Football League. Like a lot of people talk about Mike Vrabel a lot. For me, it's like, I don't know how I feel about Vrabel. I feel like Vrabel's like, he's obviously going to rub people the wrong way, because he has that, I don't know, that smugness. I was shocked when Titans moved off.
I wouldn't say like a thorny person. He has a strong personality.
Very strong personality.
They can come off as brash or overconfident in some ways, but I think he was very successful with the Titans. I don't think he got let go because it was any performance-based thing.
I think it was
with the GM. Yeah, where they were kind of seeing things separately. I'm still going to maintain, I've been saying this since he got let go, that Ryan Day is going to underperform at Ohio State, and then Mike Vrabel's going to take that job. Yeah, I think that's what he's waiting on. But again, it comes back to, you said you want stability. Is hiring Belichick this late in his career going to be that, right? Is Belichick, who also loved having control over a lot of stuff in New England, going to feel comfortable with that level of control? I would love Bruce Arians if he could get here. Yeah, give me a guy who worked with Andrew Luck and Ben Roethlisberger and Carson Palmer's revitalization in Arizona and Oakland, and then being in Tampa Bay. Yeah, that's a guy who's done it in multiple places where it was smaller markets. It was harder to win. That's a proven guy for sure. Yeah, I definitely would agree with you that I would like the experienced head coach who's won in more difficult scenarios prior.
Yeah.
Difficult to find though.
Let me ask you. You don't. Bill doesn't attract. Doesn't
do it for me because look.
Really, Logan?
What?
I'm shocked.
Here's the thing. Look at what happened he had complete control the last 5 years, right? Where did they go? What happened? Yeah. He had complete control of the roster. Every say so. It was, Bill, no more Tom Brady. This is your team. And I'm not saying the game has passed him by. I'm not saying that he can't still give things, but at the same time, these players are getting younger and younger. Do you think he can still relate to players the way he wants to? Do you think he wants to deal with half these guys anymore? Because these coaches are just these kids are just getting younger and younger, and I can't communicate on the level with them that I want to, on a personal level. That matters. That resonates with guys. When you look at the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, all of these guys who have Lil Wayne tattoos and shit, right? They're all having a good time. Ben Johnson, all these guys are able to meet their players on a personal level, even if they're not young. They're young in spirit in some way, right? And I don't think Bill is the personable guy who would get that done. And sometimes the authoritarian thing is just not the way that it rubs a lot of players the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players who have gone there, who have said, I hated it. There's lots of players who played in there and said, hey, it's not for everybody. And I think you see that with Josh McDaniels, with all the other branch outs of the coaching tree.
This might sound crazy. I feel like the Bengals this offseason is so pivotal from an organizational structure. I feel like there has to be change, deeply rooted within the organization.
You have to at least get fresh ideas in there.
Yeah.
You can't keep going status quo.
Yeah. I think something I feel like we're on the brink of something changing. I just don't know what it is exactly.
I think and that's where the whole discussion is, what needs to change. And I do think that Bill Belichick would be good. And the reason why I think my biggest issue is there's two things. It's one, obviously the culture here is good. I think that he fits, and this is my opinion, I think that he fits with this Bengals culture a lot more than other coaches and other situations would. And Evan, you talked about how the Patriots were. I think the difference was the Patriots were a mess at that point. I think that he would walk in here, though, and have a quarterback like Joe Burrow that fits the same type of mantra. And I think that's what this team needs, in my opinion. They need somebody that, and I think also Bill Belichick is, hopefully he would be different. I would hope that he wouldn't want full autonomy. And I would hope that he would see this whole, change of him, being on the podcasting side, being on the broadcasting, saying, hey, I don't want to have to worry about that shit. I just want a quarterback that I know is a superstar quarterback that is, we've all discussed it, similar in sense to a Tom Brady-esque, mentality-wise, play style-wise. And I think that he could step in here, and this is obviously affording that this Bengals season goes to shit. This is affording that, hey, they don't make the playoffs, that we start having a Jamar Chase calling out coaching. We start having players calling out coaching. We start having all media, Pat McAfee, Stephen A. Smith saying Zach Taylor needs to be gone. And I think at that point we could be having this discussion. And me personally, that's where I think, and I don't know the other candidates, but if it were to go to shit and they were to fire Zach Taylor, I think it would be a mistake bringing in a Ben Johnson, bringing in a Bobby Slowick.
What if they came back up to select? We're going to hire Marvin Lewis.
Oh, Lord.
The Raiders are going to beat us. And like, Marvin,
what about John Gruden? I don't.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No.
Wait, what is
wrong with you?
Our
show has reached unhinged level. Oh, no. We're done. Listen,
what's Lane Kiffin up to? You know?
Right.
Yeah, John Gruden's fun. I'm sorry.
Got me feeling nice.
Yeah,
but
he's
anyway,
hilarious.
But anyway, we appreciate y'all for tuning into another episode of State of the Jungle with Malik, Wright, and the boys. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. from the TWSN studios. Remember, I'll be back live tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the sit down Malik Wright as we do an in-depth preview of Bengals and Raiders, as well as get you guys all settled in for Fantasy Football Fridays here at TWSN. We appreciate y'all. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up talking sports and having the conversation.